Welcome to episode 128 of the Sports Geek podcast. On this week's episode, I chat Vine, Snapchat and Loud Vikings fans with Scott Kegley, now with the Minnesota Vikings.
Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, currently crafting Facebook ads so your friends will find out about this podcast, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, my name is Sean Callanan, and you are listening to the Sports Geek podcast. You might be doing that on iTunes. You might be doing it on sportsgeekhq.com. You might be doing it on Pocket Casts. Thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Sean Callanan, as I said. You can also contact me via email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com. Got a story later on a terrific email I got last week. So yes, if you've got any feedback on the podcast, you can send me an email, or you can do it in other forms such as Twitter at Sean Callanan and our SportsBiz Slack at Sean Callanan. Funnily enough, if you've got a question or a query or some feedback on the podcast, you can leave it in any of those channels. This week I catch up with Scott Kegley. Caught up with Scott back on episode 85 of the podcast when he was at the 49ers. He is now at the Minnesota Vikings, so we talked to him about the transition from San Francisco to Minnesota, some of the things that he's learned, how the team has transformed and changed in his time there, starting last season, right before week one. Talk about a baptism of fire. And then we talk about some of his strategies around different platforms, dive in on Vine again, also talk about Snapchat, and also talk about fan engagement and integrating the skull chant in US Bank Stadium, and how it's very hard to integrate new concepts and new traditions in stadiums. So here is my chat with Scott Kegley from the Minnesota Vikings. Very happy to welcome back Scott Kegley, now with the Minnesota Vikings as Executive Director of Digital Media Innovation. Scott, welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Two-time guest. It's exciting.
Yes, so people who have listened to the podcast before, episode 85, I caught up with you at Levi Stadium when I was in San Francisco prior to SEAT that year. You are now at the Vikings. Tell us a little bit about that, I guess, the transition and I guess the differences coming from the 49ers to the Vikings. What have been some of the things you've learned early on at the Vikings?
Yeah, well, I started with the Vikings last year. Week one actually was my first week here in Minnesota, and we actually flew back out to San Francisco to play the 49ers on Monday Night Football. So it was about the weirdest transition you could possibly have. But did you go into the wrong locker room? It's almost like you would have taken a wrong turn. Yeah, I told him I wasn't going to give my credential back. That way I could just get in anywhere in the stadium that I wanted to go. But no, it's certainly nice. I mean, I knew my first road stadium like the back of my hand, so I knew where to be and when for the buses arriving and all those good things. But no, it was an exciting time. It was certainly a very whirlwind time jumping into a new organization week one, not having been through an off season or training camp. Not exactly the ideal way that you'd look to join a new organization, but it was a fun one. We were just kind of attacking one thing each week, in that scenario. Normally you'd make your plan well in advance going into the season. So when you have to develop it on the fly, we just kind of picked certain things to attack each and every week. So it was, how do we get photos quickly for social media? What do we want to accomplish this week? What do we want our posting strategy to look like? Those were some of the initial things that we attacked and kind of just tried to hit the ground running as much as I could.
That's really important, that piece of, well, if we're going to try to improve things, not try to improve everything at once, just taking one thing, adding it, making sure we've got those processes, like that stuff of how do we get the photos quickly? How do we make sure that, our Instagram is getting attention, or how do we make sure that we're getting the appropriate photos for the Twitter account, or making sure that the graphics person that's putting together the graphics for halftime, that like some of those processes, you can't roll them all out and fix them all in week one. So it really was a matter of, let's get the baseline, let's know what we're doing, but then every week let's take that piece of content up another notch or two. That was pretty much the approach.
Yeah, and we had a group coming together. So before I got here, we had social media was kind of half reporting to PR and half reporting to marketing. We had a few of our writers that were reporting into Vikings Entertainment Network, which is the group that we're all under now. And then digital media, our Vikings.com and our website and mobile app ran through marketing as well. So we were essentially having everyone that's in my group currently was reporting to three different groups. So we had to also, just from an organizational perspective, kind of try to streamline those things. So there was just a lot of new processes overall that we had to figure out, how this was all going to come together. And, had someone who was at least then new at that time, doing social media for us. And, he's done a tremendous job, kind of came from PR. So really worked, with each group, little by little. I think social media was the one that we really tried to attack first, just because we were really trying to grow that staff. And so, yeah, you're right, Sean. It was just, how do we focus on one thing each week and kind of try to get better at that one thing. And it really was rewarding, because by the end of the year, it certainly was night and day from where we started. So I think we just took a lot of pride from that in year one.
So you've intimated on, and the way you describe that team of it straddling PR and marketing and content and digital and sort of serving many masters, you're intimating that there has been a restructure and things have moved about. What does that structure now look like, as it stands now? Have you sort of pulled people together and it's a bit more of a streamlined structure?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything that's content is essentially under one group, which is our Vikings Entertainment Network. And that's led by my boss, who's our VP of Content and Production, Brian Harper. And then underneath Vikings Entertainment, there's essentially kind of three different verticals. So one is the game day entertainment side of things. The other one's production. So all of our TV shows, they also help with a lot of the editing and different, digital content series pieces. And then there's my group, which is, the digital, social, and the mobile wing. So it's fantastic for us, because from a content perspective, there's really no excuses for missing anything, for us dropping the ball in any area. We all talk, we all communicate. Makes it really efficient for us to integrate social media in the game day show, or cut teasers of, different segments that we do, or collaborate on how we're going to cover the combine. Last year when we went out to Chicago, getting everybody in one room and really getting a bunch of good ideas all in one room, and then kind of have the best idea win. And that's how we kind of develop our strategy. But
it also develops that efficiency across all of those things, because it's a bit of a waste when you guys create a great teaser that's hitting the mark on social, but then that's not being played on game day on the big screen at a big moment to both amplify what's happening at the game, but then also to tell your fans, this is also happening on all of our digital channels. There's a lot of inefficiencies in a lot of teams where if those operations, game day and production and digital, are sort of operating as silos, then you're wasting talent in building out the same hype trailer or the same collateral that's not being shared across all of those platforms and being coordinated in that.
Yeah, and absolutely. I'm kind of reminded of what one of our producers, Jordan Struck, told me. We were up in the press box at TCF Bank Stadium, our temporary home last year, and I think it was just an hour or so after the game. And Jordan does a fantastic job with all of our wirings each week, and so he cut I think a little tease, and it was run by everybody who needed to approve it, and it was ready to go on social. And so we said, hey, this clip of, say it was Everson Griffin, I forget exactly who it was at that time. This clip of Everson Griffin is good to go, and it was already up on social media promoting the fact that we were going to have that later in the week. And he said, oh God, this is crazy that it's up on social so quickly. And I was like, yeah, you guys aren't doing all this for nothing. We want to make sure that, the best content, we have, is out in the hands of our fans as quickly as possible. So, it just kind of speaks to your point of trying to get that stuff out there, as quickly as possible and try to get the best content out there as possible.
And so from a content point of view, when we did speak, on episode 85 about the 49ers, you did it. You launched stuff around around Vine and the 40 Viners, as it was known then. You took some of those learnings and lessons and started the Vine Kings to produce similar content around the Vikings. First of all, how has that been received by Vikings fans? But then also, I want you to sort of I've had a few people who have listened to that first episode say, Sean, you didn't ask, and you didn't deep dive on the how they go about it. So tell us a little bit about how it's received, and also the fact that you're pushing it out on multiple platforms, not just Vine. But then take us through a little bit of the production side of it and how you go about building out some of those videos.
Yeah, well, first of all, I only can work for sports teams that can successfully incorporate the word Vine into their name. So that kind of just worked out. But we actually worked with the same Vine artist, Ian Padgham, that we worked with in San Francisco. And kind of one of the most exciting moments was, when I knew I was going to be going to Minnesota, I talked to, she was then our social media manager there, Megan Ryan. And I said, hey, we play week 1. Let's try to come up with a fun way to kind of do a Vine back and forth. So we were able to kind of do a claymation sequence, kind of a 4-part series where, the Viking mascot would beat Sourdough Sam and, kind of trade barbs and ultimately say tune in, for Monday Night Football. So that was kind of a fun way to kick off the program. And then we've been doing it weekly since preseason this year. And it's been really well received. I think that, in general, it stands out from the other content that you see across all your platforms. And certainly, there's great content, whether it's wirings or, there's lots of other teams that produce really good stuff and do a really good job on social media. I think, though, that the thing that I like about Vine Kings and what we've been able to do there is it really stands apart from the rest of the things that people see from us. It's a little bit of kind of shocking or different, or and not shocking meaning going too far or anything like that, but it certainly is kind of a thumb stopper when you're scrolling through your feed and you want to watch that again and again. So actually a lot of our Vines this year have done even better on Instagram. I think the one from the Panthers week, I believe it was, or maybe it was the Giants, just the other week ago, had about 280,000 views on Instagram and about 100,000 loops on Vine. So it does better on some of the other platforms. So it's been really exciting to see that come along. And, in terms of, I guess the how, we work with Ian, who, literally won the award for Vine Artist of the Year. So I think that, if you're a team that's kind of interested, or a brand that's interested in trying to do some of these fun stop motion claymation type of, Vines, there's a lot of different ways to go about it. Certainly having somebody with that experience helps. There are certain things that I'm able to do, but, for the most part, that's Ian doing the vast majority of all the good stuff that you see on our channels. But, you try to think, what's the story that you're going to tell in 6 seconds. That's kind of the good and bad thing about Vine, is it's extremely challenging. It's not the most user-friendly platform in the world. It's not, Snapchat where you can pick it up and anybody can do it and kind of tell a story over a sequence of photos and videos. But on Vine, you kind of have this compressed time frame. It's kind of somewhere in between a GIF and a shorter video, and you have to really think about that platform and what can work. So it is challenging, but it's a little bit more artistic, I think, in terms of the people who have that platform resonate with them.
And it's a little bit like, to my sense, it does fit really well with Twitter in that in Twitter you have to show brevity, you have to get to the point. Mm-hmm. Yet editing is really important, and that's effectively what Vine is from that point of view. In that you can't be showing War and Peace or a Scorsese film in a Vine. You've got to edit it down and get your point across in 6 seconds. So it's pretty much just a means for you to brief Ian in on, hey, we've got these guys. This is who we're playing this week. Here's some of the ideas. Here's what we're thinking. This is what the rivalry means, and then he will come back and potentially pitch a few different ideas to go ahead with. Is that sort of how the process works for you guys?
Yeah, Ian and I talk each week. He's actually out in France, for the start of this year. So we've kind of had to work around some of the time difference. But anyways, we'll go back and forth in terms of what we want it to be, or I'll tell him, hey, we have a skull chant deal that we're doing. What do you think about doing something on that? And I basically will try to give him as many ideas as I can, or at least, different assets, that he can use and try to, maybe tell him like, hey, general direction. But I try not to be too descriptive for exactly what I want, because, he's extremely creative and you don't kind of want to hurt the creativity. But I think the times I get most excited are when he says, hey, I have an idea for this week. Let me just put something together. And then I'm just really excited to see what he comes up with, because I know he's going to be extremely passionate about that one and it's going to turn out great.
Terrific. You spoke a little bit about the skull chant in the stadium. Tell me how that has worked both from a fan engagement stadium point of view at US Bank Stadium and it's getting people involved, but then also how you and your team have sort of taken that and amplified that on the digital channels.
Yeah, so I think everybody kind of knows the story behind that, and the Iceland soccer team, and what was it, Euro Cup, and seeing them come back and that rally, and you saw the power of it with the soccer team up on stage. Was fantastic. And they're playing this on SportsCenter and mainstream networks around the US, and that's really the first time that American audiences are who aren't particular soccer fans might be exposed to this. And there were several people in the organization that immediately began talking about that pretty much the next day and texting each other, and it's kind of like, how do we do something like this? That's pretty darn cool, and it's called the Vikings chant. So it's kind of a home run if it's something that we can do. And talking to Brian Harper, my boss, about it, it's extremely difficult, right, to get a new fan tradition started.
Yeah, because
it's hard to say.
There's that pushback of, it's manufactured. These kind of things should be organic. Coming from the European and the English Premier League and the fans, the active supporter that will start singing in unison, and it just happens organically. To be able to to say, hey guys, this is what we're doing. You've got to be. It's a fine balance to say this is going to be organic. This is, you guys are going to love it too. It's manufactured sausage factory kind of fan engagement, and scoreboard driven. So how was that, I guess, the idea of it introduced? How did you sort of educate the fans to say, this is what we want to do, this is how our game day is going to operate? It's going to be, you are going to be a big part of it, because it's an education process as much as anything else, isn't it?
Yeah, you want to let them know the story behind it. You want to make it feel authentic, and you also want to give them a little bit of an instruction so they know what the heck to do. But people buy into these things because it's cool, because their friends are doing it, because they've, seen something on Facebook. Like, it's incredibly difficult. You look at some of the teams, and we're one of them that has a touchdown song. Those were developed decades ago. And if you look at, take Fly Eagles Fly, like, maybe one of the most, famous ones from an NFL team, that chant probably isn't cool by today's standards if it was introduced in 2016, but it has decades of being, authentically integrated into their franchise. So it's like, how are we going to do this with this brand new chant? So Brian and then Greg Bostrom, who's our director of entertainment, they worked with the Iceland soccer team and Thor Bjornsson, who plays the Mountain in Game of Thrones. It was kind of one of their Iceland's most famous, actors. So to work with them, they actually gifted the chant to us. So it wasn't us just taking this and turning it around. It was them honestly kind of becoming Vikings fans when we said, hey, we want to do this, and this is awesome. They got behind it, and they're like, anything you guys need. So they actually filmed some of the teasers that we used, and we came up with a plan to do. I think it ended up being about a 4-part series where we kind of introduced. It was the Mountain from Game of Thrones first, and then it was Aaron Gunnarsson, the captain of the Iceland soccer team, the next, and then it was kind of both together, and then we had one the morning of the game that was ultimately going to run in stadium. So. That's kind of how we tried to get the word out about it. And, the first time that I knew that it was probably going to be successful was when that Friday before, the Sunday game, went to my wife's parents' house, which is, about 30 minutes from here. She's from Minneapolis area originally. And her dad, my father-in-law, showing me a clip on Facebook of the teaser that we posted that day. And he said, Scott, have you seen this? Like, this is crazy that the Vikings are going to do this. Like, this is gonna work. And I looked at him and I said, Jerry, do you know what I do? Do you know what I do for a living? Like,
obviously not.
Yeah, I'm 100% in on this. I know that this is a thing, but he's been a Vikings fan for pretty much his whole life, and when you see that, I'm like, this is our target demographic right here. And by doing some of these things and targeting people, even boosting some of those things on Facebook to people who are going to the game, and email addresses that we have of people who are going to be ticket buyers. Like, this is a great way that we can get this messaging out in front of them to the 67,000 fans who are actually going to be at the game and get this thing to take off. So that was kind of maybe a longer story than needed, but in terms of how we tried to get that started.
But it's not. I mean, I think it does illustrate there's a lot of people that try to roll out an activation or something in stadium, and it's one swing of the bat, and they tried to take it from football to baseball and try to hit the home run with that one swing. When really it is a 4-part series. There is an email component. It is something that you have to put out in your media. I'm sure your media team was telling the local news outlets about it and all those kind of things. And it is tapping into popular culture and things like that. In pulling in Game of Thrones. It's only the hottest show on television, and everyone it's a way to reference that as well. So it is a bigger piece, and not just we're doing it this week, can you put out a Facebook post and a tweet, because that's going to, there's every chance that that's going to be missed. So you've got to have a few jabs at your fans, your audience, to make sure that they find out about it. Otherwise, it'll just be one hit, and then people will go, it won't work. Then the other thing is you've got to be consistent on it. I mean, early on, and I still think it's pretty consistent now. It normally takes fans about 4 or 5 weeks to figure out that you're actually doing something consistently, and you want them to do it. And so, if you're always putting out like you're doing with Vikings, you're always putting out something pre-game, and now they know about it, they wait for it, they're looking for it, they're looking to share it. You have to be consistent in 3 or 4 weeks to be able to go back to your fans to say, yes, we're going to keep doing this because you like it, and we want you to join in. Was it a little bit of that, like week 1, there was really, there was good adoption, but then by week 3 or 4 or 5, it was like all in. Everyone was all in. The crowd mentality. Once the majority of the crowd's in, the whole crowd's in.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. I think that the next phase for it is really going to be to have it take off and kind of live on its own, where fans are just doing this instinctively themselves, and they actually were before the Houston Texans game just the other day. We have a game day live, pregame show that we shoot, and there were some fans that were standing around in the background of the show that were doing the drum beat and then hitting it twice and then the one clap, and it was just a small group of fans, but it was really cool to see them trying to do that organically. But yeah, the first time that we did it, Green Bay game, it was kind of I'd give the fans in attendance about a B level. In term, we were like, okay, that actually was pretty good, and kind of surprised us that it actually was that good right from the get go. But then we did it again and again, and in between the third and the fourth quarter, gosh, it was close to deafening when you're up in the press box, and it just keeps on getting better and better every game, and we've had a handful of them under our belt now, so. It's certainly something that the team's getting into as well. You see the players doing the clap even on the field and getting the fans pumped up. So it's been fun to see that one come along for sure. It's pretty hard to start those types of traditions. Yeah, I mean, it's almost, to a certain degree, it's a lot like the. Can you guys just make us a viral video? Yeah. Like to get something, to get 70, to get 68,000 people all doing something in unison on a weekly basis, and have it stick. And like you said, by the end of the season, this will be ingrained in the game day experience for Vikings fans, that they'll expect it. It'll start happening organically. It'll start happening in particular moments of games. At a big defensive play, one of your players will start doing the clap, and the fans will just start doing it organically because you've built up this behavior in the fans. Yeah, when you try to force things like the Carly Rae, Call Me Maybe videos a few years ago, and you're looking for those viral moments, and you try to force yourselves into that. It can always come back to bite you to some extent, and that's when it really does feel forced. So I think you're right there, Sean. So a few other things. You've been doing a little bit more work around Snapchat, integrating that into the stadium experience. Tell us a little bit about that. Yeah, so we worked with Snapchat and then Tagboard, who's our social curation company that we work with, and I've worked with those guys for a long time, and they're certainly the best in the business, and they've tried this now twice with Snapchat, where they've curated snaps to the video board, and it's from the official team account, but we're able to put those up in the board just about in real time, and then there was a QR code that we had on the other side of the two main video boards in the stadium. And so the call to action was to open Snapchat and press and hold on the QR code from the camera in order to immediately follow the team on Snapchat for some of this behind the scenes content. So it was a way for us to show people, what they were missing by not following. And a lot of it was happening at or around the stadium on that day. And it's some of that content that people will never see unless we were able to put it up on the video board. So it was tremendously successful for us. Had a huge spike in followers for that day, and it's going to be something that we continue probably every other home game, throughout the rest of the year. So something that fans can look forward to. But we were excited. I think we were the second team to do that. The Mariners. Did it just this last season, Tagboard Seattle based, and the Mariners do a pretty darn good job too. So it was interesting to see what they did as well. And it's exciting that Snapchat's getting into this space now as well. I think it's really important. I mean, I think early on,
from a social media point of view, if you're looking at Facebook and then Instagram and Twitter and the like, there was a real emphasis on promoting all the other platforms. We're now on Instagram. Go check out our Instagram. And I think Snapchat being a latecomer to the party in that sense, not as the promotion of the accounts aren't as much as we were doing early on. Like early on, people were telling people, "Hey, this is us on Instagram." And yes, Twitter and Instagram had the fight, so they don't like sharing each other's content, that kind of thing. But everyone were really active in trying to grow their audience on the different platforms. And I think to a certain degree in the last 18 months, that's slowed by a lot of teams. Like people aren't going onto their Facebook and saying, "Hey, this is us on Instagram," and it's different. Like that's the other thing, and it's different content that you want to consume, and that's the thing. That's the unique part of Snapchat, because you really do have to snap it right there and then. There are a few tools to upload some cool stuff, but most of it is live, captured there and then. So it is going to be unique. It is going to be different. It is going to lend itself to more behind the scenes. But still, if you were to compare your Facebook followers compared to your Snapchat followers, there's a lot of people that don't yet know that exists. So I think the promotion of your other channels is still super important, because sports is going to be the entree and the way in the entry for anyone onto those platforms. Like they might only follow Snapchat and follow some of your players, and that might be their whole total Snapchat experience. Especially if you're talking out of the core Snapchat demo that are potentially starting to get on Snapchat and starting to use it. You want to make sure that your team's in that list.
Yeah, it's such a powerful platform, but you look at how you're going to be able to share content from Snapchat, and it's just different in terms of the tool set that's available in the platform currently. So to be able to showcase that content and have it be a press and hold on the giant QR code from literally any seat in the stadium, and you'll be able to follow us. That's 67,000 people that you have as a captive audience, who might not have even known, or maybe had trouble searching for you and finding your content, or how they're finding out about it maybe just from their friend. Oh, I follow the Vikings and this was pretty cool, and I saw this in my feed today. Okay, well, like, what's their name on Snapchat? Okay, and you're able to type in Vikings and find us. But it is difficult, and that promotional element is just you have to think about it a little bit more and try to get a little bit more creative. And this is one of those ways that Tagboard and Snapchat kind of came up with this partnership to where they can be creative and do just that.
And the other thing is you're looking to do something new and different on your Instagram, especially around your road game strategy. What are you looking to do there?
Yeah, so like each platform, we kind of treat each one a little bit differently, and so it was kind of one of the things that I'd thought about starting for a little while, and we came up with the concept of this Vikings Instagram group, which we actually started for a Thursday night game last year, and then that was basically it for the rest of the season, just because it was towards the end of the year. The only other road game that we played, was at Green Bay. So we started it up this year, and we've been doing it every week, where we work with a local photographer on the road. So worked with some folks, and in Carolina was a great one, in Nashville, and up in Seattle. So it was fun to work with local artists this year, to where we actually send them a Vikings helmet in the mail, and then that week they go around to some of the different iconic places around the city, or just places that they personally think are cool. In Carolina, our photographer kind of lived on out in the country a little bit, so we had some more kind of country themed shots. But it's interesting to see how each person takes exactly the same concept and does something different with it, and it speaks to their style, what they enjoy about photography, what they enjoy about the Instagram platform, and you're able to kind of see that week over week. And each week we get something a little bit new. And then, I'll send links, to the photographers that are up next in terms of, what people have done in the past. And so they'll look at it and they'll get some ideas, and then they'll do something a little bit different off of that, and kind of, it's just different iterations of the same concept, which is really interesting. And I think that's really the power of Instagram specifically. I think that's the type of content that does particularly well on that platform. It's something that we were able to, even get a sponsor for this year in Prime Sport. So, and working, I think, pretty seamlessly to the program and to the logo. So, something that we're excited about and excited to continue doing the rest of the year.
And the good thing is it does make sure it sort of challenges what you're thinking of what Instagram is, and because you're seeing it from that fan point of view and from other photographers, other artists' point of view, to say, well, we're not always going to go with this. The sports photography business has been in business for near on 100 years, but Instagram does have its own, I guess, lens to that thing. So bringing in other photographers does give a bit more broadness to the appeal of your account, doesn't it?
Yeah, and we've found all these photographers through Instagram as well, and looking through the Instagram communities within the different cities. We found our Phoenix photographer for the Arizona game, and I think it's at Phoenix IGers, is the handle, and they have, several people contribute to that, and you find somebody with a style that you think will work pretty well, and, we contact them, in a lot of cases through Instagram if they don't have a website, and then we're on the phone with them a little bit after that, hashing through the details. But it does, it does kind of play towards, even we'd like people to follow us on Instagram, even if they don't necessarily, even if they're not necessarily fans of the team, from the get-go, just because they like what we're doing on the platform. And so I think that's a little bit different of a strategy maybe than, some other people might have. But I think, and that was the case with the 40 Viners, and we hope that'll be the case with, Vine Kings and some of this different type of content that appeals specifically to people who are fans of those platforms.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much tapping into that, photographic essays side of things, which is what Instagram is, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really interesting too to, see the different styles and see that come to life. Each person adds something different, and at the end of the year, it's going to be really fun to look back at that kind of the best of album that we put together and see the helmet in different places, and also highlighting some of the things that are pretty cool about the cities and across the country.
Very, very, very much so. So I'm going to finish off with the Sports Geek closing 5. Quick 5 questions just to wrap up the interview. Do you remember what was your first sports event that you ever attended?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was either the Sacramento Kings back when they had Mitch Richmond, or it was a Oakland A's game out watching Ricky Henderson in the bleachers. One of those two games. I don't know which came first, though.
So it would have been Mitch Richmond in the powder blue Sacramento Kings uniforms, which would be retro now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the throwbacks, which were fantastic. But yeah, I grew up a huge Sacramento Kings fan. Grew up in Sacramento, so they were one of my favorite teams growing up for sure.
And your favorite food that you've ever eaten at a sports event?
It's probably pretty simple, but I'm a big popcorn guy. I think that's always kind of a staple. Or if they have like the build your own nachos where they pile everything on, or probably out here in Minnesota, you'd probably have to go. We have some really cool, cheese curds out at the building. So those would be a good one to try now that I'm out here as well.
Terrific. And what's the first app that you open in the morning?
Twitter first, get the news. Usually check Bleacher Report to see what's going on in the sports world. So those are the first two.
Very good. And if there's people that you think the Sports Geek podcast listeners should follow, whether it be a Twitter follow or people who they should be reading online, who should they be tracking down?
Well, at the start of it, I kind of mentioned, just some of the photography and things like that when we kind of started that in week 1 last year. But our 2 team photographers, I think, are absolutely fantastic. They're some of the best in, all professional sports. So Andy Canutis and Zach Tarrant, I'll give them a shout out. It's at Vikings Photog and at BZT, Zeetee. And those guys do tremendous work, lots of behind the scenes, access, and they really provide all the great content too that's on our social channels visually. So they do a great job. So I'll give them some love there.
Terrific. And so if you're Kevin Durant and you have to pick a social media platform that is the real MVP, what would be your social media MVP?
It's hard to choose just one. I'd probably go Facebook. I just think that there's so many tools there, and the way that they've integrated with 360 photos and 360 video. I think they're really out in front and kind of leading the way with some truly unique offerings there that are really changing our industry. And then for us too, it's very valuable to us. It's a huge traffic driver for us back to the site. So, we'd probably say Facebook at this point.
It continues to be, every time I'm talking to teams, it continues to be like 30 to 40% of the traffic is coming from Facebook and it's not about it's not about volume of posting. It's just if you put up quality content, it's gonna drive that content. And yeah, I definitely think the 360 degree video and photos is something that's just continuing to grow, and it's really just that's just an entree to the VR stuff. I think more and more people will be watching highlights and wanting to watch videos with the headset on. How have you? I mean, didn't get to talk about it, but you did open it up. How have you found the fans reacting to your 360 degree videos and highlights around the stadium?
Yeah, it's actually one of our travel folks, was talking to me yesterday at the game and just said, Scott, my wife was looking at Facebook the other day and she was just amazed because she could look at this video and she started moving her phone around and the screen moved with her. And, he didn't know exactly, the video that that he was referencing, but I told him a little bit about the technology and whatnot behind it. But it's really cool to have that reaction from fans, especially when they see it for the first time, because it is just so unique. And, Facebook's platform lets you, take it in the palm of your hand and view it on your mobile device or, view it on your desktop, or you can take that content and, we've posted some of it on GoPro's site too. So you're able to look at that and, Gear VR or what have you, and be able to really see that, as the first game at US Bank Stadium that we shot it against the Green Bay Packers. So was a successful day for us on the field too, but which made it even better. But it was really cool, to be able to take fans who, were out of state or weren't able to go to the game, but they could still go and they could still see or at least experience the atmosphere in the game. So big fan of that, and we'll see how that changes and kind of help shape what we do going forward.
I definitely think that's going to be both a growth area and a pain point for teams going forward, because at the moment I don't want to say it's in the gimmick space, but it's new and shiny, and so people are drawn to it to go, oh wow, look at it. But then once we go past that, and like we got that early with, hey, here's the 360 degree, photo, and now we're doing 360 degree video. Now people will want 360 degree video that actually tells them a story, that they can see, that kind of thing. Sort of similar to the documentary type of things. I think there's one on the next VR platform with a Conor McGregor fight where it effectively follows them around and those kind of things. And so that's only going to put more strain from a resourcing and point of view of, you're going to have a video, a 360 video producer and someone about to shoot it, edit it, put it together, tell that story in that environment.
as people get more comfortable with putting on I'm putting on my headset, I'm going to watch, this interview or this documentary in this format. So that's going to be the next 12 to 18 months is going to be where some teams will really push ahead and really own that space, because I think it's something that Facebook's really pushing hard in. Yeah, absolutely, and they're doing a great job of it, and it's so fascinating to see the new tools and the new technologies in that space. It's incredible. So, lastly, where can people find you? What's the best way to get in touch and connect with you? You can follow me at Scott Kegley on Twitter, at Scott Kegley on Instagram. Feel free to reach out, or you can find me on LinkedIn as well. So either one of those. And of course, you're in the Sports Biz Slack as Scott Kegley. So if you're in the Sports Biz Slack community, send Scott a message, tell him that you've listened to the podcast, and ask a question around Vine or 360-degree videos or Snapchat, because Scott is completely all over it. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me, Sean. Always good to talk to you. All right, cheers.
Sign up for Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/sign up now.
Thanks again to Scott Kegley. You can find him at Scott Kegley, SCOTTKEGLEY, on all platforms. As I said, Scott is on Twitter, but he's also in the Sports Business Slack community. If you are not part of the Sports Business Slack community, please join up. It's free, no charge. And some really good discussion happening in there. Several different channels that are available. Digital has been really hot lately, and I'm going to discuss why that's been hot. But other channels are campaigns, where you can share your best campaigns. Sponsorship, talking about sponsorship and activations around sports. Stadium, around the stadium technology and the fan engagement space. They've even set up a channel for South by Southwest. If you're heading to South by Southwest, let us know. I'm looking forward to being there. Hopeful that my panel will get up, but I'm going to be there nonetheless. One of the things from my discussion with Scott, and one of the things I deliberately did not ask, recently the NFL has come out with a new policy for teams around what they can share and not share on social. And the new policy effectively locks down the use of in-game videos and GIFs showing highlights on platforms such as Twitter. And that has been, received with disdain and poor feedback. And there's been a very big discussion in the digital group on the Sports Biz Slack. I didn't ask Scott because I've worked both on the team side and the league side, and he's in a no-win situation. He can't discuss it. It's quite unfair to even ask him, because you've all been on that side of those kind of decisions, and as a team, you really can't say too much. So that's why I didn't ask Scott about it, and won't betray his confidence in what we discussed off air. But from my take, it is a little bit of a backward step from the NFL, considering that they've made the leap into Twitter video and broadcasts. With their Thursday night football telecasts on Twitter. So they've leapt right into the digital space with that coverage, but then to limit what the teams can do to amplify that, I think that is the wrong decision. I'm just going to, because it doesn't engender more people to tune in. You want your fans, you want your teams. And the thing is, the only people that is really penalising is the teams. I've seen commentary there. There's not going to be anything stopping fans taking screen caps and sharing those GIFs or sharing those videos. They'll continue to do them. So will rogue sites. And really, the only people that it's penalising is the teams and, in effect, their fans. So I think it's a bit of an overcorrection in this case. And I think eventually, hopefully, common sense will prevail. I think we've seen evidence, definitely in other leagues, the NBA, that has a really wide policy and doesn't mind its fans, its teams, and its players sharing its content. And we've seen the growth that has happened in the NBA's digital platforms. I really do think that is the way to go. And the thing is, it does drive tune-in. The more people sharing great vision, great highlights. The fact that it's a close game, people will move away from the small screen. There are people saying that the first screen, second screen experience now, that the mobile phone is the first screen. You want people to move off that mobile phone and go to the TV. And if all you're getting on Twitter is animated graphics and saying touchdown and that kind of thing, which is all that is available, then that doesn't make it as exciting, and there's a lot of sameness in that feed. So I think that will get course corrected, and we'll see. Be one to watch this space. But if you want to join in the discussion in a nice, safe environment, you can do so in the SportsBiz Slack community. Just go to sportsgeekhq.com/Slack. One more thing, I just wanted to get some feedback on the Famous Fan episode. If you haven't listened to it, please give it a listen. sportsgeekhq.com/famousfan. Especially for those, similar to Scott, he sort of broke down the way that the Vikings Entertainment Network is built out, having a game day department, production and digital. Famous Fan, I think, worked really closely across both the two of those in the game day, activating those fans. They appear on the big screen, and then digital can amplify and also capture the data. So I'd really be interested in, one, what did you think of the episode as a format? Do you want to hear more of those kind of episodes? And then two, is it a product that you're interested in? So you're going to go to the site, enter your details, and I'll connect you with Josh, or send me an email and ask my thoughts off air via the email or via those channels. Lastly, on emails, I want to have a special shout out to, and I'm apologies in advance if I mispronounce your name. Constantly, I'm getting baristas and Uber drivers calling me CN, so it does happen. But I'm going to say Johan's Wallet from Swedish Basketball Federation. Thank you very much for your email, very kind email, long-winded email of the successes that you're having with the Swedish national team, recently playing in front of their biggest crowd ever in Sweden. And I was really humbled to get the email, and also to hear that he's been implementing some of the tactics and some of the methods that have been discussed on the podcast. And so he did discuss that a lot of the hard work, handing out flyers in sub-zero temperatures in Sweden to get people to come to basketball games. There's nothing like hard work to make you appreciate success. So thank you very much, Johans. I'm very appreciative of the email, and I'm very appreciative to all of my guests, like Scott, who are very open with their time and knowledge to help me to produce this podcast. So again, if you've got a success story like that, where you've rolled out some marketing plans or done a particular campaign that has really hit the mark, please send me an email. I'd love to hear more about what you're doing, and if you want to know more about that success, ask Johans, Johannes, because he's in the SportsBiz Slack. So again, thank you very much for the email. Completely blown away. I think I got it at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, and was quite chuffed. So thank you very much for that email. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek. Stay for the end of this podcast. Scott was very kind to give me a bit of an audio snippet of describing the Skull Chant and hearing it in action at US Bank Stadium. It gets the spine tingling, the hairs on the back of the neck type of stuff going. And I've got a good friend, Todd Cafflish, who's now also at the Vikings. It's making me want to head over on a plane and head over to Minnesota to check out a Vikings game, the way that things are happening over there, and join in on the Skull Chant. So thanks again to Scott Kegley for appearing on the podcast. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.
Like the Sports Geek Podcast? Find us on Facebook.com/SportsGeek. Check out which teams work with Sports Geek at SportsGeekHQ.com/clients. Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to SportsGeekHQ.com/iTunes. Thanks for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.
Minnesota leading, everyone in purple standing right now and clapping above their heads and shouting "Skol, Skol, Skol" as the fourth quarter begins here in Minneapolis.
This is a nod toward the Icelandic soccer team. Viking thunderclap celebration. Viking fans now have their Skol chant here at the end of the third quarter.
66,690 all in their purple seats and doing the Skol chant, which is pretty cool.
We're going to need our fans to be really loud, get that Skol chant going.